Canada spent $6.4 billion building a bridge. They gave half of it to Michigan for free. American steel, American workers, American benefits. And Donald Trump looked at that arrangement and said, this bridge will not open. The next morning, Mark Carney picked up the phone and delivered 4 sentences that ended the entire confrontation. No emergency summits, no diplomatic meltdowns, no capitulation. Just 4 sentences of fact. And what happened next exposes who's actually driving Trump's trade war and who's profiting from it. Because this story, it's not about a bridge. It's about a 97-year-old monopoly, a billionaire family that's been fighting this project for 2 decades, and a president who threatened American workers to protect their interests. Let's break it down. Here's what Trump posted on Truth Social February 9th, 2026. Canada owns both sides of the Gordie Howe Bridge. Virtually no U.S. content. The United States must be compensated before it opens. Within hours, that post detonated across Michigan politics. Because here's the problem. Nearly every single word of it was factually wrong. The bridge wasn't the real target. It was leverage. Trump was angry about 3 things. 1. Ontario ran TV ads criticizing American tariffs. 2. Ontario banned American alcohol from provincial stores in retaliation. 3. Mark Carney had just returned from Beijing with a trade deal that slashed tariffs on Canadian canola from 85% to 15%, opening up $7 billion in new export markets with China. Washington called that deal hostile. So Trump looked at the Gordie Howe Bridge, a $6.4 billion Canadian infrastructure project, sitting on the border waiting for a presidential permit to operate, and saw something he could threaten. The problem? He'd already endorsed it, funded it, called it vital. And the facts of who owns it, who paid for it, and who benefits from it were all publicly available. The 2012 Canada-Michigan crossing agreement is not classified. It's been public for 14 years. Here's what it says. Canada pays for all construction, every single dollar, all $6.4 billion. Michigan contributes nothing. In exchange, Michigan receives joint ownership of the finished bridge, half the bridge, for free. And here's the kicker. After Canada recoups its construction costs through tolls, Michigan becomes eligible to receive 50% of all net toll revenues going forward, forever. The state of Michigan gets a share of billions in future revenue from an infrastructure project it funded with $0. That agreement was signed by Michigan's Republican governor, Rick Snyder. It was reviewed and approved by the State Department, which issued the presidential permit in 2013. It was endorsed by Trump himself in 2017 in a joint statement with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, calling the bridge a vital economic link. Trump's own administration then signed $15 million in U.S. customs funding for the bridge into law in December 2019. Trump didn't just fail to block this bridge during his first term, he actively supported it, he funded it, he praised it. So when he posted that Canada owns both sides of the bridge and that the U.S. must be compensated, he was contradicting a 2012 public agreement, a 2013 State Department permit, a 2017 joint statement he personally signed, and a 2019 law his own administration passed. Every major claim in that post was incorrect. The bridge was not built with virtually no U.S. content. American steel and American workers were used on the Michigan side. Canada does not own the American side. Michigan has owned half the bridge since 2012. The U.S. has not been denied compensation. Michigan was given 50% ownership and future revenue rights without contributing a cent. Windsor Mayor Dude Dilkins said he couldn't believe what he was reading. And then Rick Snyder, the Republican governor who negotiated the deal, published a column in the Detroit News correcting the errors one by one. The man who designed the agreement was publicly fact-checking the President of the United States. So here's the question nobody in Washington wants to answer. Who actually benefits from keeping this bridge closed? Not Canada, not Michigan, not the U.S. federal government. One family. The Maroon family of Detroit. In 1979, Manuel or Mattie Maroon acquired the Ambassador Bridge, the existing crossing between Detroit and Windsor. One man, one bridge, a near total monopoly on heavy commercial truck traffic between the two countries. The tunnel connecting Windsor and Detroit prohibits commercial trucks, so every 18-wheeler carrying auto parts, agricultural products, and manufactured goods crossing the Detroit River pays tolls to the Maroon family. More than $60 million a year for 4 decades. When Canada began planning a public replacement bridge, Maroon understood the threat immediately.
He spent the next 20 years fighting it with everything available. $30 million on a Michigan ballot initiative requiring voter approval for new bridge construction. It failed, 60% against. Multiple federal lawsuits claiming exclusive rights to any Detroit-Windsor crossing. Lost every case, including a Supreme Court challenge the justices refused to hear. Television advertisements on Fox and Friends during Trump's first term, directly asking the president to cancel the project. Trump didn't cancel it. His administration funded it and called it vital. But here's the detailed Rick Snyder named directly in his Detroit News column. The Maroon family are major Republican political donors. They have lobbied against the Gordie Howe project in Lansing and Washington for years. And now, with the bridge days from opening, a presidential threat that blocks it delivers exactly what 2 decades of litigation could not. Snyder wrote, there would be one big winner if Trump succeeded in blocking the bridge. Not Canada, the Maroon family. He called picking this bridge as leverage nonsensical. The stoppage would primarily harm Americans. This wasn't a partisan attack. It was a factual assessment from the man who designed the agreement. Even Michigan House Speaker Matt Hall, a Republican defending Trump's threat, mentioned in a press briefing that there was already a bridge owned by an American family, suggesting those owners could be subject to retaliatory tactics from Canada. The Maroon family was being named in a briefing about why blocking the Gordie Howe was supposedly a good idea. No one at the White House addressed the connection. No statement engaged with Snyder's column. No official explained how blocking a public bridge that benefits Michigan workers and Michigan's auto industry serves Michigan's interests better than it serves the interests of one billionaire family that collected monopoly tolls since 1979.
Trump's threat was supposed to demonstrate American leverage over Canada. What it demonstrated instead was that the most important swing state in American politics would not follow the president into a fight against its own infrastructure. Senator Alyssa Slotkin, a Democrat, was direct. Canceling this project will have serious repercussions for Michigan businesses, supply chains, and ultimately higher costs for Michigan consumers. Trump is punishing Michiganders for a trade war he started. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has maintained an unusually cooperative relationship with Trump throughout his second term, did not stay quiet. Her press secretary issued a statement calling the bridge all about jobs, good for Michigan workers, good for Michigan's auto industry. She noted that Canada financed construction, union workers from both sides built it, and it operates under joint ownership, a tremendous example of bipartisan and international cooperation. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce said, blocking or barricading bridges is a self-defeating move. Modern border infrastructure strengthens shared economic security. The path forward is building bridges, not deconstructing trade corridors. And then, Rick Snyder published his column. The Republican who negotiated the original agreement, signed it, celebrated the groundbreaking, and designed the ownership structure that gave Michigan 50% of a $6.4 billion bridge for free, wrote publicly that Trump's threat primarily harms Americans, that the leverage makes no sense, and that the one big winner is the Maroon family. This was not Canadian opposition to an American president. This was Michigan's governor, Michigan's senator, Michigan's former governor, and Michigan's business community, all telling the same president that he was wrong about a project in their state, a project American workers built, a project American companies depend on, a project that gives Michigan 50% ownership of one of the most important land crossings on the continent. The reason Michigan pushed back so hard is that the Gordie Howe Bridge solves a problem that's cost American businesses money for decades. The Ambassador Bridge was built in 1929. It's 97 years old. Its approach on the Canadian side connects to city streets in Windsor, meaning commercial trucks must navigate surface roads, traffic lights, and urban intersections before reaching the highway. That routing costs time, and time is money for every trucking company, auto manufacturer, and logistics provider moving goods across the Detroit River. The Gordie Howe connects directly to Ontario Highway 101 on the Canadian side and Interstate 75 on the American side. Freeway to freeway, no city streets, no traffic lights, no delays caused by a road network designed in the 19th century. A University of Windsor study calculated that the Gordie Howe cuts up to 20 minutes off commercial crossing times. Over 30 years, that saving translates to $2.3 billion in reduced costs for truckers and the industries they serve.
That money flows to American auto manufacturers, American agricultural shippers, American logistics companies. The efficiency gain is shared across the border. The bridge also eliminates the most dangerous vulnerability in North American supply chains. If the Ambassador Bridge closes for any reason, mechanical failure, structural emergency, or protest blockade, heavy commercial truck traffic across the Detroit River stops completely. The tunnel prohibits trucks. There is no alternative. The integrated North American auto industry, which crosses components back and forth multiple times before a vehicle is finished, would stop. The Gordie Howe creates the redundancy that makes both economies more resilient. Blocking it doesn't protect American interests. It locks in a vulnerability that Canada and the U.S. have been trying to eliminate for 25 years.
Trump's post went up on the evening of February 9, 2026. Carney called Trump the following morning. The call didn't require a long argument. Carney laid out 4 facts. 1. Canada paid $6.4 billion to build the bridge. 2. The state of Michigan and the government of Canada share ownership under the 2012 agreement. 3. Canadian and American steel were both used in construction. 4. Canadian and American workers both built it. Then Carney walked out to speak to reporters on Parliament Hill. He didn't look like a man managing a crisis. He said he told Trump, "This is a great example of cooperation between the two countries." He said he looks forward to its opening. He noted the importance of commerce, tourism, and the everyday crossings of Canadians and Americans using it. He asked U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, who is from Michigan and understands what the bridge means to his home state, to help smooth the conversation going forward. And then Carney mentioned that Canada's women's hockey team was going to beat the Americans that day. 4 facts, 1 diplomatic assignment, 1 piece of hockey commentary. The White House issued a statement afterwards saying it was unacceptable for Canada to own the bridge fully. But Canada doesn't own the bridge fully. Michigan owns half. That had been stated publicly by Carney, by Michigan's governor's office, by the Republican former governor who designed the agreement, and by every major news organization within hours of Trump's original post. The White House was responding to a version of events that had already been publicly corrected multiple times. Carney didn't convene emergency cabinet meetings, didn't threaten counter tariffs, didn't make this a constitutional confrontation about presidential authority. He stated 4 facts, asked a Michigan ambassador to help, and described the conversation as positive. That's a strategy, not a concession. The difference matters. There is one question the Trump administration has not answered, not in any press briefing, not in any White House statement. In 2017, Trump signed a joint statement calling the Gordie Howe Bridge a vital economic link between the two countries. In 2019, his administration signed $15 million in U.S. customs funding for the bridge into law. He endorsed it, funded it, called it vital. Then, 9 years later, threatened to block it from opening. The bridge didn't change, the ownership structure didn't change, Michigan's stake didn't change, the economic case didn't change. The only things that changed are that Carney signed a deal with China, Ontario banned American alcohol, and Trump decided the bridge was now a hostage. Rick Snyder put it plainly. The bridge stoppage approach would primarily harm Americans. It makes no sense as leverage because the pain falls on Michigan workers, Michigan businesses, and the Michigan auto industry. And the one party that walks away better off is the Maroon family, which has spent 20 years and $30 million trying to stop this exact bridge from opening. That context is not being discussed in Washington, but it's being discussed in Michigan, in Ottawa, and by anyone who read Snyder's column. Trump went after a bridge Canada paid for, Michigan owns half of, American workers helped build, and American businesses depend on. Carney corrected the record in 4 sentences. Michigan's governor, senator, and former governor all pushed back, and the bridge kept moving toward its opening date. That's not what winning a trade war looks like. That's what happens when leverage is chosen without understanding what it actually costs. Canada built something, paid for all of it, gave half away, and it's opening anyway. 6,000 Canadians will cross that bridge every day to work in Detroit. 8,000 trucks will move between the two countries through a crossing that cuts 20 minutes off every commercial journey. The auto industry that employs workers in both countries will have a redundant route that makes the supply chain more resilient. And the Maroon family will face the competition it spent $30 million trying to prevent. Trump threatened to stop all of that with one Truth Social post. Carney answered with 4 sentences. The bridge is opening. That's not weakness, that's precision.
If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on the stories that shape our world. Because understanding who benefits from these decisions, that's where the real story always is.